what struck me as interesting is like, and it's related to your educational system. What is the higher goal of everything in the end? Because you say things like, uh, I wrote it down, you should be, that there is a change, and people should be critical, and people should be able to draw connections and correlate information from one topic to the next, right? But we are still talking at such a small educational level like K or even middle school or high school. So I'm thinking that what's the ultimate goal, like the ultimate goal for the whole of the society? Well, obviously, like, I'm sorry, Sharnez, like if you're a
Yes.
principal of the school, obviously, like your goal is from to get your kids from one grade to the next to the final grade so they can then enter the society for the next step, right? So
Hmm.
if you're a principal in a school. So at university, we prepare the students to leave the university then for their next step for a career. But like, what's the higher goal? Because I see in the US particularly, since you have so many districts and you're funded differently, and they're private schools and they're non-private schools, and they're socially disadvantaged areas and they're not, and everybody has different funding. So you make do with so little at some times, right? That
Hmm.
the conglomerate of positive effect for the society seems so like random out there in the air, right?
So are you
That I'm
saying,
thinking
do
like,
you mean
what's,
fragmented? Do you mean
yeah,
fragmented?
like what's the ultimate goal? Like, okay, we prepare the people in little schools for being a good person, being aware,
Hmm.
understanding of A and B and C and D and the society and the environment. But like, what's the ultimate goal even, right?
Well, in America,
Because, hmm?
in America and in any society, you have standards, and so those standards is what gives people a target. For example, if we were to talk about elementary school, if a kid is not reading by the third grade, then that becomes a problem because that's going to affect him throughout his educational experience. So then, there's this social promotion. Let's say if a kid comes to high school and he cannot read, then we have special education programs. So ultimately, there's a new superintendent. His focus, he was an elementary school teacher, and then he was a superintendent, and now he's chancellor of the school system. His focus is elementary school. I think that's a great focus because I've known with my own kids, I make sure that they learn at a very young age, and once they have that, let's see, they if they love reading, then they can begin to grow throughout their educational experience, regardless of what they happen happens to them. If you understand what I'm saying in terms of
I
that
understand what you're
focus.
saying, but the standards are not clear to me, because if there are so many districts and schools and states and cities that are funded differently, uh, I did notice that the standards of a high school graduate in regard to knowledge and perception and understanding of the world and the knowledge is not really a standard. It's on all different steps of the ladder. And that's, I guess, what my question is. So what is the
Well,
ultimate?
the point is each of those kids have parents. So your parents is your first teacher, right? So if your parents don't provide you with a certain education, then you go into the school system. Then that falls on the teacher. So how is the teacher going to handle that particular child? They have to teach 30 students. So then we have special education programs to hopefully capture that kid before they just drop out. And then, as Ms. Brown talked about, even on a college level, she has kids adults who have 20 credits and they want to continue with their education. In the high school level, you might have kids that are 19 and they only have 2 or 3 credits. So what do? You could go to a independent high school that accelerates the learning process. But ultimately, they're human beings. They're going to learn anyway. Okay, so they might say, okay, well, this kid is in special ed, but when he comes into the community, he's not special ed. He's a kid. Do you
I
understand?
think this question though is around programming. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So
I think this is a question of whether what is the programming setting students up for? And I think the answer for all of us, if we can agree on one thing, no matter what the programming is at Webster or district number 5 or whatever it is, at the end of the day, we're preparing them for the life beyond their educational experience, wherever that ends.
mm-hmm.
So for some, it'll end at
global,
16.
Yeah, to be global citizens. At the end of the day, the whole point, or a lot of standards for states lined up to being global citizens. So making sure that when they go into the world, they are prepared academically, emotionally, socially, and they can walk into the world ready. So I don't know if that answers your question, Marion, but I know that a lot of school districts, especially in this area, have been moving towards more like a social emotional approach when it comes to core values, especially elementary level core values and what is it, portrait of a graduate. So they're looking a little bit deeper than just academics, is moving into the social emotional realm as well.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, there's another part to this when we think of it as a system. Okay, so when we think of education as a system, and I hear what you're saying, Sharnez, I agree. A lot of the educators are coming in like thinking that way, and that's the new movement. But it is a system, and our problem is when we look at education, it hasn't really changed much since its inception in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, we're still doing somewhat of chalk and talk. Okay. While the chalkboard may not be there, but it's still at some places, like at Morris, we have a chalkboard. So, but teaching, you're going to go to the board, smart board, you're going to write on it, right? So here we go, chalk and talk. The other part of that is when we look at the system of education, education has, and Drucker was his name, one of the theorists. He said in the future, and this was back in the 90s, he says in the future, as education progresses, it's going to become more politically volatile. And that's what we're dealing with. It's the politics that has gotten involved. And to Marion's point, that's it's like, well, what do you want? You say you want this, you have these standards, you're saying this, you're saying that, you have elementary